If you had asked any Assyriologist working in the British Museum in 1965 what the word Enmashara meant, they would have told you it was the name of a dead god. A figure from the bottom of the god lists, filed under defeated, filed under underworld, filed under no longer relevant. They had no idea that W.G. Lambert was about to publish a tablet that described his execution in detail, named his 7 sons, and explained exactly where they were sent. The tablet is Late Babylonian, probably from the Seleucid or Parthian period, recovered from Sippar. Lambert published it in his 2013 volume Babylonian Creation Myths, pages 281 through 301, under the title Enmeshara's Defeat. The text is damaged. The beginning is lost. What survives is the ending, and the ending is a sentencing. Nergal, the god of plague and the underworld, stands before the assembly and addresses Enmashara directly. Lambert's translation reads, "Marduk himself has commanded that you should not live, and your 7 sons he will quickly bring to a terrible doom." Marduk then strips Enmashara of his splendor. The Akkadian word is Zimu, and reassigns it to Shamash, the sun god. The former king of the cosmos loses his radiance. It is given to someone else. And then Marduk draws representations of Enmashara's 7 sons on a wall. That last detail is the one nobody talks about. The defeated gods are not simply killed. They are turned into images, drawings on a surface, which is exactly what the Neo-Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian priests would later do with the 7 Apkallu sages in the Bitmessery ritual, painting their likenesses on the walls of houses and burying clay figurines of them under thresholds. The new order keeps the old order as decoration. But Enmashara is not a minor figure. His name in Sumerian is Enmesharra. It means Lord of all the Emi. The Mi are the divine decrees, the fundamental operating rules of the cosmos. Kingship, priesthood, the scribal art, the descent into the underworld, the ascent from it. Whoever holds the Emi holds civilization. And the cuneiform record says that before Enlil held them, before Enki held them, before Marduk claimed them, they belonged to Enmeshara. He was their lord, the lord of all of them. The Sumerian composition Enlil and Namzitara identifies Enmeshara as Enlil's paternal uncle, not a distant ancestor, not an abstraction. A family member 1 generation removed. Enlil, disguised as a raven in the text, confirms that Enmeshara was once in this position, and he ceased decreeing the Me. The passive voice is doing heavy lifting in that sentence. He ceased. He did not give them up voluntarily. They were taken. F.A.M. Wiggerman of the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, in his 1995 essay, Theologies, Priests, and Worship in Ancient Mesopotamia, published in the 3rd volume of Civilizations of the Ancient Near East, called Enmeshara, the brainless old cosmos predating the period of Enlil's just rule. That is the academic summary of a cosmic coup. The previous administration was declared incompetent and removed. Enmeshara's 7 sons are identified in the defeat tablet as the Sebitti. The 7. These are the same divine warriors who appear in the Erra Epic as the weapons and companions of Erra, the god of plague. In the Erra Epic, Tablet 1, Anu sows his seed into the earth, and she bears 7 sons, each given a destructive destiny. Terror, fire, the fear of lions, mountain shattering, wind deluge, viper venom. Luigi Cagni edited the Erra Epic in 1969. Benjamin Foster translated it in Before the Muses, 3rd edition, 2005. The Sebitti are consistently described as beings of overwhelming destructive force, so dangerous that even the great gods avoid them. The defeat tablet tells us these 7 are the sons of Enmashara. The former king's children became the weapons of the gods who replaced him. His bloodline was not destroyed. It was conscripted. Enmashara is not the only displaced figure the cuneiform record names. There is Lugal Dukuga. His name means Lord of the Holy Mound, the Duku, the cosmic platform on which Enlil decreed the fates. A Middle Assyrian offering text prescribes bread for Lugal Dukuga on the 29th of the month of Tashritu, and describes him explicitly as the grandfather of Enlil. Lambert identified him in several god lists as the last of the Enki-Ninki ancestor pairs, the generation immediately before Enlil. He is described as no longer active, resident in the underworld, a god who once stood on the platform where destinies were decided and who now eats dust in the dark. The Enki-Ninki pairs themselves stretch the genealogy even further. These are not the famous Enki of Eridu, the god of wisdom and fresh water. Lambert and Thorkild Jacobson both insist on the distinction. The Enki-Ninki deities are primordial ancestor pairs first attested in the god lists from Farah and Abu Salabik, dating to the middle of the 3rd millennium before the Common Era. By the time the tradition reaches its fullest expression in the great god list N equals Anum, there are 21 pairs. 21 generations of beings stretching backward into a deliberately constructed abyss of remoteness. Enki and Ninki, Enul and Ninul, Endukuga and Nindukuga. On and on, generation after generation, each pair dimmer and more distant than the last. In the Sumerian poem The Death of Gilgamesh, the hero meets these ancestors in the underworld. They are already there when he arrives. They have been there since before human memory. Andrew George of the School of Oriental and African Studies interprets their underworld location as reflecting inactivity, not punishment. But the effect is the same. They are below. They are silent. They were the foundation, and the foundation was buried. The Mesopotamian tradition accounts for the displaced gods. The Hittite and Hurrian traditions go further. They name the displaced kings, describe the violence of their removal, and specify where they were sent. The key text is the Song of Kumarbi, also called the Song of Going Forth, catalogued as CTH 344 in the Hittite text classification system. The principal tablet is KUB 33.120, with joins from KUB 33.119, KUB 48.97, and several other fragments recovered from the archives at Hattusa, the Hittite capital in central Anatolia. The text was first published by Hans Gustav Güterbach of the University of Chicago in the American Journal of Archaeology in 1948, under the title The Hittite Version of the Hurrian Kumarbi Myths, Oriental Forerunners of Hesiod. The Song of Kumarbi opens with a succession of divine kings. Alalu reigned in heaven for 9 full years. In the 9th year, Anu fought against Alalu. He overcame Alalu so that he fled from him and went down to the dark earth. The Hittite phrase is Dan Kuish Tekan, dark earth, the underworld. Alalu, the first king of the gods, is deposed and sent underground. The text does not say he died. It says he went down. Anu then reigns for 9 years. Kumarbi, who had been Alalu's cupbearer, attacks Anu. He catches Anu by the feet as Anu tries to fly up to heaven like a bird and bites off his genitals. From the swallowed seed, several gods are born inside Kumarbi's body, including the storm god Teshub. Teshub eventually overthrows Kumarbi and becomes the reigning king of the gods. The pattern is 3 generations of cosmic violence. Alalu to the dark earth. Anu castrated. Kumarbi impregnated by his own act of violence and then overthrown by what he swallowed. Guterbach recognized in 1948 that this sequence is structurally identical to the Greek succession myth recorded by Hesiod in the Theogony. Ouranos is castrated by Kronos. Kronos is overthrown by Zeus. The Titans are imprisoned in Tartarus. Walter Burkert developed the comparison in The Orientalizing Revolution, published by Harvard in 1992. The former gods of Hatti, the Titans of Greece, and the primordial beings of Mesopotamia are the same story type. Every ruling generation is eventually sent below by the next. The connection between Alalu and Ouranos is not just structural, it is geographic. The Hittite capital Hattusa sits in central Anatolia. The Greek world begins on the western coast of the same landmass. The Hurrian kingdom of Mitanni, which transmitted the Kumarbi tradition to the Hittites, occupied northern Mesopotamia and southeastern Anatolia. The route of transmission is not a theory, it is a map. The gods traveled west along the same trade routes as the copper and the tin. And the detail that makes the parallel undeniable is the castration. In Hesiod, Kronos castrates Ouranos with a sickle. In the Song of Kumarbi, Kumarbi bites off the genitals of Anu. The weapon is different, but the act is identical. The old king is emasculated by the new. The severed organ produces offspring. In Hesiod, Aphrodite is born from the foam of the severed genitals falling into the sea. In the Kumarbi text, the storm god Teshub is born from the seed Kumarbi swallowed. Cosmic succession in the ancient Near East is not a metaphor. It is sexual violence encoded as theology. The Hittite scribes had a specific name for the displaced generation: Karuiles Siunes, former gods, ancient gods. In Hurrian, the equivalent term is Enna Durenna or Amatena Enna, meaning ancestral gods or grandfather gods. They appear in Hittite treaty texts as divine witnesses. In the treaty between Suppiluliuma I of Hatti and Shatiwaza of Mitanni, edited by Gary Beckman in Hittite diplomatic texts published by the Society of Biblical Literature in 1999, the former gods are listed by name: Nara, Napsara, Minki, Tuhusi, Amunki, Amedzadu, Alalu, Anu, Antu, Enlil, Ninlil. 12 names, 12 displaced rulers standing witness from beneath the earth. At the rock sanctuary of Yazilikaya, near the Hittite capital, the left wall of Chamber B shows a procession of 12 male gods wearing pointed helmets and carrying curved swords. Piotr Taracha of the University of Warsaw, in his 2009 book Religions of Second Millennium Anatolia, published by Harasowitz, interprets these 12 figures as the Karuiles Siunes, the former gods carved in stone, watching the living from a wall, the way Enmashara's sons were drawn on a wall by Marduk. The most revealing moment in the Hittite tradition comes in a separate poem called The Song of Ulikumi, catalogued as CTH 345. Harry Hoffner of the University of Chicago published the standard English edition in Hittite Myths, SBL Writings from the Ancient World, Volume 2, 2nd edition, 1998. In this text, a stone giant called Ulikumi grows on the shoulder of the titan Upaluri until it threatens to destroy the cosmos. The storm god Teshub fights it and loses. Then Ea, the Mesopotamian god of wisdom who appears in Hittite texts as a crossover figure, descends to the underworld. He goes to the former gods. he addresses them directly. Open again the old fatherly, grandfatherly storehouses and bring forth the former copper-cutting tool with which they cut apart heaven and earth. The copper cutter, the tool that was used at the beginning of time to separate the sky from the ground. It is not in heaven. It is not in a temple. It is in the possession of the former gods underground, in a storehouse that has been sealed since the cosmos was built. Ea retrieves the copper cutter and uses it to sever Ulukumi from Upaluri's shoulder, saving the cosmos. The current order of gods cannot solve the crisis with their own tools. They need the technology of the generation they replaced. And the generation they replaced is still down there, guarding it. The Mesopotamian parallel is the Erra Epic. Marduk, speaking in Tablet 1, lines 147 through 162, asks where are the 7 sages of the Apsu, the holy fish beings, who like Ea their lord are perfect in lofty wisdom. He answers his own question. I sent those craftsmen down to the Apsu, and I ordered them not to come back up. The 7 Apkallu, the antediluvian sages who taught humanity writing, agriculture, law, astronomy, architecture, and medicine, were banished to the freshwater abyss after the flood. Marduk himself did it. The Erra Epic, edited by Cagni in 1969, preserved on at least 36 tablets from 5 sites across Mesopotamia, records the confession of the king of the gods that he dismantled his own civilization's support system. And yet, the Bit Meseri ritual, the healing incantation series edited by Reichel Borger in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies in 1974, prescribes that clay figurines of those same 7 Apkallu be buried beneath the foundations of buildings and painted on the walls of sick rooms. The incantation addresses them directly. You are the statues of the Apkallu, the Watchers. The beings Marduk banished to the Apsu are summoned back, in miniature, into every Assyrian household that performs the ritual. They are confined but not silenced, banished but still consulted, imprisoned but still guarding doorways. This is the theological compromise that the cuneiform record describes across 3,000 years. The former gods are not dead. They are contained. Enmashara is in the underworld, stripped of his splendor, his 7 sons turned into weapons and images. Alalu is in the dark earth, the first king of heaven, reduced to a prisoner beneath it. The 21 Enki-Ninki ancestor pairs sit in the Apsu eating dust. Lugal-Dukuga, the grandfather of Enlil, receives bread once a month on the 29th of Tashritu, and is otherwise silent. The 7 Apkallu are in the abyss by Marduk's direct order. The former gods of the Hittite tradition guard the copper cutter in a sealed storehouse and come out only when the cosmos is about to collapse. The Anunnaki did not build on empty ground. They built on top of a buried generation. Every temple foundation in Mesopotamia contains figurines of the beings that came before. Every treaty in Hatti invokes the names of the kings the current gods overthrew. Every incantation in the Bit Meseri calls on sages who were ordered never to return. The question the texts leave open is not whether the former gods exist. They exist. They are named. They are located. They are addressed in ritual. The question is whether the seal on the storehouse holds, whether the copper cutter stays underground, whether the beings who once held all the me, who once sat on the Duku where fates were decided, who once ruled heaven for 9 full years before being sent to the dark earth, will stay where they were put. In Hittite ritual practice, contact with the former gods required digging an API, a ritual offering pit. Blood, oil, and the bodies of piglets were poured into the earth. Alfonso Archi of the University of Rome, in his 1990 article, The Names of the Primeval Gods, published in Orientalia, specifies that offerings sent to the former gods must never be brought back up. What goes down to them stays down. The pit is a one-way telephone to the buried generation. You can speak to them. You can feed them. You cannot retrieve what you send. The Mesopotamian underworld serves the same function on a larger scale. In the descent of Inanna, the Anunnaki sit as 7 judges before the throne of Ereshkigal, Queen of the Dead. They turn the eye of death on Inanna when she reaches the final gate. These underworld Anunnaki are not the same as the Anunnaki of heaven. They are the lower group, the 300 stationed beneath the earth in Enuma Elish Tablet 6, and the Hittite equation closes the loop. The underworld Anunnaki of Mesopotamia equal the Karuiles Siunis of Hatti, equal the displaced primordial generation. Different names, same location, same function. They are the old gods sitting in the dark watching. The underworld itself is described in Akkadian as Irkala or Ersetu La Tari, the land of no return. The texts are physically vivid. The descent of Ishtar says it is a place where those who enter are deprived of light, where dust is their food, and clay their bread, where they see no light and dwell in darkness, where they are clothed like birds in feathers of wings. This is not hell as punishment. This is a storage facility for decommissioned divinities. They eat dust because they have no cult, no temples, no breath of human prayer to sustain them. Except once a month, on the 29th of Tashritu, when the Mesopotamian calendar still owed them bread. The Hittite scribes at Yazilikaya carved them into the rock with swords in their hands. The Mesopotamian priests buried their figurines under thresholds facing outward, toward whatever might try to get in. The cuneiform record does not say the former gods are harmless. It says they are contained, and it prescribes rituals to make sure the containment holds. That is the part of the Anunnaki story that the other channels never tell you. The Anunnaki are not the oldest thing in the room. They are the current management. And beneath their feet, named in tablets you can read in museums today, are the gods they replaced, the tools they confiscated, and the door they sealed but never locked. Enmashara, the lord of all the Mi, sits in the underworld stripped of his radiance, his 7 sons turned into weapons and wall paintings. Alalu, the first king of heaven, sits in the dark earth, where he has been since Anu pushed him off the throne 9 years into his reign. Lugaldukuga, the grandfather of Enlil, receives bread once a month and is otherwise forgotten. The 21 Enki-Ninki ancestor pairs eat dust in the Apsu. The 7 Apkallu are in the abyss by Marduk's direct command, and somewhere beneath a sealed storehouse in the underworld, guarded by the former gods of a civilization that predates Babylon by 1,000 years, there is a copper knife that was used to cut heaven from earth at the beginning of time. The cuneiform record names them. The Hittite treaties list them as witnesses. The Assyrian priests buried their figurines under doorways, and the scribes, for 3,000 years, wrote their names on clay and fired the clay and stored the tablets, and never once said the former gods were gone. They said they were below. They said they were contained. They said the seal was holding. They never said it would hold forever.